Welcome to Conversations. This time we have with us Shri RVS Mani, the former Undersecretary in the Ministry of Home Affairs, during those crucial days of 2005 to 2010, when a lot of incidents happened across the country. But today we are here to discuss something more with Mr. Mani. And before we start the show, let us formally welcome Mr. Mani. Shri Mani, welcome to the show at Nationalist Hub. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you very much. I am also feeling very welcomed here and very happy here to be.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mani, let's start with the issue that was dominating the news in the last, say, 2 weeks. The BBC documentary that is being spoken about from a long time. Of course, it came out only recently. India, the Modi question. A lot of hue and cry. The matter has gone to the Supreme Court. A lot of people want to screen the movie. A lot of them don't want to screen the documentary. All that issues are happening. But you were there in the hot seat for a long time to understand what really happened in those moments in Gujarat when those riots happened there. So let's go back a bit and understand from you, was those riots in Gujarat, the Godhra and what followed that, actually should be looked at in isolation or something that preceded that actually that made all this possible? What do you think, sir?
Let us come back to the very first instance. See, 13th December 2001, 3 months before this entire thing happened, the Indian Parliament was attacked. Of course, the attackers, none of them survived, but the conspirators were brought to book. Later stage, Afzal Guru and others were hanged and all that. But the question again is, in the immediate aftermath of the attack on the Parliament, to show that Indian government is not a weak government, we had escalated our deployment on the borders. The operations was known as Operation Parakram. In fact, I think I am not recollecting the author's name, and Colonel has written a detailed book on this, but what is important is Operation Parakram had happened, and you used to hear about eyeball to eyeball confrontations and highly escalated thing, and all sorts of things were coming out during those days of January 2022 and February 2022. And as a ploy to de-escalate the Operation Parakram, it was a Pakistani ploy, and you have a lot of foot soldiers and supporters of Pakistani ploy. If that is what Mr. Musharraf's people who are condoling the Musharraf's death, which has recently happened, is one of the best giveaway that the Godhra Sabarmati Express train burning happened. I have read the reports, and I have filed affidavits in one case of a victim who was arraigning for his rights before the Gujarat High Court. He had gone to the Supreme Court, and later on, the case is, later on he was directed to go to the High Court. The case is known as Sardarji Maganji Waghela. In that case, I had filed about it, and Godhra was a clear conspiracy, and it could not have happened without a design from, it was not a local outburst. It could not have happened, and train was burnt, and by design it was burnt. So I will share the facts of some of this in the due course. Like the gentleman who was convicted later on by the courts of this country, not by the respected courts of the country, Haji Bilal, who died in jail a couple of years back, I do not recollect, somewhere 2021 or so. He was the owner of a guest house called Aman Guest House, right opposite to the Godhra station. And the investigation, and which has been confirmed in the prosecution also, trial also, that he had stored 140 liters of petrol in his Aman Guest House.
Why would the guest house owner store petrol of that quantity in his thing? I mean, you rightly mentioned that Parakram and Parliament House before that, and an eyeball to eyeball confrontation with Pakistan was almost happening.
Right.
But at that moment, to take that confrontation away, Pakistan did something called Godhra. A lot of allegations were there by leftist cabals like Wire and Caravan and others. Even after the recent story, Wire carried a story saying that most of those 59 car sevaks who were killed, or rather the people who were killed, the devotees who were killed, were travelling ticketless from Ayodhya to all the way to Godhra. How is it possible, Mr. Mani?
I do not know what is their source of information, But none of the reports, including the report which was made by Banerjee Commission, appointed by Lalu Prasad Yadav, has flagged it. And if they were travelling by ticketless, who was the whole railway minister at that time? Their own favourite Nitish Kumar was the railway minister. And if you to say that for 24 hours of journey from Ayodhya they have been travelling, Faizabad, they were travelling without ticket and without getting caught. It's like putting the cart before the horse and asking it to be driven. There can be no further lie by the cabal than this.
Mr. Mani, you have seen during your tenure at the Ministry of Home Affairs from 2005 to 2010, you have seen the Indian Institute of Science attack. You've seen the Shramjeevi Express attack. You've seen the German bakery blast. All these things happened, Malegaon and rest of them also. Now, when you look at the entire thing and in consolidation, not in isolation, you think there was a design behind each of these incidents that happened. They were not isolated incidents as many of us were made to believe at that point in time, including what happened in Godhra.
Indeed, I would certainly say that, because without the foot soldiers in India, they could not have carried out these attacks brazenly. And every attack, generally few of them had an aftermath like what happened in Godhra. Now, in 2001, when Narendra Modi became the Chief Minister of Gujarat, there was a lot of disgruntled people in the Congress, and because he was brazenly objective, he would not do a sort of appeasement. I won't say in favor of majority, he was brazenly objective. And that objectivity was not to the liking of a lot of people in the media, in the media and in other places also. So these are all after effects of such.
That's Mr. Mani. Yeah, you rightly said it's an objective decision of Mr. Modi. He was very objective about what he wanted to do.
Okay.
But more important, if you look at the BBC documentary and you look at the allegations made against Mr. Modi, one was a case of inaction, that he was not doing anything, which the Supreme Court actually absolved him and said he was innocent of it. I mean, Mr. Modi was not responsible. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court. The CBI was involved. The CBI directors were involved for a long time in that. Yet, BBC brings out this documentary based on a team that was sent from UK to India in 2002. And if I'm not mistaken, Prime Minister was Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee then. How did this team from UK travel to Godhra and rest of Gujarat when the riots were happening? Who gave them the permission to enter Gujarat?
As for one of the former diplomats, no permission was ever sought or taken. They simply travelled impromptu. That is itself a very big breach of protocol by the British government. And even now it is not too late to flag it. We can certainly send a demarche to the British High Commission that this has happened, and we take very serious view of the matter. And if required for intervening in the internal affairs of the country, we may also bring the person to book by lifting the diplomatic immunity. That is an option available, and Jack Straw can be objectively, Jack Straw and his team, which has done this research or which has done this lie or whatever it is, peddling this lie, they can be on an independent account, they can be brought on, irrespective of the fact that whether you have a MLAT or whatever it is. This is about the sovereignty of the country, and nothing is more paramount than the sovereignty of the country.
I'm wondering what basis were those visas issued to those people there. I assume that they were not diplomats. There were specific teams sent from UK by the British government, and of course Jack Straw was involved in that. How did these people reach Gujarat? You rightly said they had no permission to reach there. The situation was so bad at that point in time. And definitely, as you rightly said, the entire conspiracy by itself, be it Sri Kumar, be it people like the rest of the cabal that were there, who were part of the police and the establishment. Even the army at that point in time, I remember a particular general whose brother is a film star, famous film star in Mumbai, now has changed his tack suddenly and made a statement which kind of stuns everybody. Can you just take us through what really happened? Because you were in the Ministry of Home Affairs, of course, not at that point in time, but you knew what happened.
General Zamiruddin Shah, his unit had landed on the 1st of March 2002. So where is the loss of time? Because to invoke the army, to deploy the army, to invoke the Army Act. There is a procedure involved. 27th, the Godhra issue happens. 28th, some sort of a riots, communal disturbances are reported, and within 12 hours or 15 hours, the army has physically landed in Ahmedabad. This is as per the version of Jamiruddin Shah.
He was then the
He led the team which had landed in.
So you were the commanding officer of that.
He was the leader of the team which landed in Ahmedabad. Of course, his allegation that no transport was available to them is not acceptable for the simple reason that yes, state government has to provide the logistics and wherewithals, but to say that such meager things like armies did not have transportation, etc., I do not agree to the fact, because in such riotous situation, even the DM would have called for vehicles from private vehicles and deployed it for the army, but I don't think it would happen. Of course, all these things, even in a riotous situation, it takes time. The team had landed, as per his own version, this morning 7 o'clock. So where was the time loss? Notwithstanding the fact, or added to the fact that Supreme Court absolved of Modi government of any such inaction. These are all facts we are looking at.
Of course, the BBC documentary nowhere mentions facts. It has only people like Arundhati Roy. It had people who hate Modi ji. For example, Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay, who I think gets up in the morning and first thing he does is abuses Modi ji. Then he had Akar Patel, who got kicked out of Amnesty. Of course, Amnesty got kicked out of India rather. He's still the India chair of Amnesty International. They all have something to axe to grind against Modi. Alishan Jaffrey, for example, the guy who wrote the story on The Wire, actually, he also writes for Article 14. Right. And of course, NewsClick, which everybody knows that pays the salary for all these people, was involved in money laundering. Right. We need not get into that debate as such. Of course, Hartosh Bal and Siddharth Vardharaj and the entire leftist cabal was all involved in this. But most importantly, Mr. Mani, when you talk of the law and order situation on that day there, a lot of people like Sanjeev Bhatt, Sri Kumar and others, and including, I don't remember the name of a magistrate who was there, who later on went on to become Sonia Gandhi's right hand. Can you just clarify that point?
I will just sum up each of the names. About Sanjeev Bhatt, I have written in my book Myth of Hindu Terror that DCP, when the CM is chairing a meeting, the DGP, the additional DGP, the Home Secretary, the Principal Secretary Home, all are in the audible region. A DCP, of course, doesn't have that. He is basically sitting there not to take orders, but to support the seniors who are there. So they are taking on the back chair. So how much did he hear about what he has said is a big question. So if he had made an allegation, that is biggest a lie, and that is the reason he has also lost his job, and I think he is serving a sentence. So his credibility about that, no other officer has confirmed it. Only Sanjeev Bhatt is a lone voice. So similarly, RB Sri Kumar has not said anything on this, but he has been lobbying, he has been seen with the lobbies. All the DGP, everybody was taken aback and all. About a DM you said, she was the DM of Godhra, where the entire incident happened, which was the center. Immediately after the UPA came, she was appointed as, NAC was formed and she was appointed the director of National Advisory Council. These are all facts.
Headed by Sonia Gandhi.
And she was National Advisory Council and an OSD to Sonia Gandhi, chairperson National Advisory Council. So these are all facts, anybody can verify.
But the point is simple, Mr. Mani. Then this entire documentary of BBC arises, and I really saw one of the videos which said that, remember the Jallianwala Bagh incident? Right. The officer who gave the orders to fire was a Britisher, but the policemen who fired on the Indians were also Indians. I think something similar is happening in the media today. Don't you think? That's just a media. I mean, you have the entire bureaucracy, the ex-bureaucracy, everybody all involved in this. As I mentioned, I had Akar Patel, there were other officers also, ex-IS officers of the Gujarat cadre and even the Maharashtra cadre. Everybody was involved in it. And I remember specifically when you actually talk about these allegations that were being made at that point in time, let us take the Bilkis Bano case. Right. The Bilkis Bano case, which is now kept on repeatedly being flagged by the leftist cabal, the Islamist cabal, actually had very few defense witnesses, isn't it?
Yes.
Can you just enumerate that, sir?
The trial was shifted to Bombay by a High Court order. They said the trial will be held in Mumbai because to shield the witnesses from any pressure or undue pressure. But what really happened, as per records available, maybe the then director CBI, I think when Mr. Mishra was there, thereafter one Shankar was there, Vinay Shankar or somebody, I do not recollect the names. They will certainly corroborate the amount of complaints and the things which were coming, that the defense witnesses were being pressurized.
Now, when you, for a layman, let us explain who is the defense and who is the prosecution.
The prosecution witnesses is going to stand and say that Bilkis Banu was tortured, raped or whatever it is. A defense witnesses will give another narrative of that. I think only 6 or 8 are very few.
Basically, they will say that these people who did this were actually
at my house or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that being unresolved, because if they are not coming, then the judge cannot do anything. The judge cannot see, they use the system in such a way, the leftist cabal, that a conviction was obtained. Whether again the judiciary is, I have my respect for judiciary, they will do only what the facts are presented before them, and if the witnesses have been threatened outside and they have no knowledge of it, they will come to their conclusion as per the witnesses which are appeared before them. And Bombay, they were threatened, and these are all facts we could have always.
So the defense witnesses who...
Many witnesses who did not reach Bombay.
Which helped Bilkis Banu.
Which helped Bilkis Banu's...
So who are the people who threatened the defense witnesses? That is the witnesses who were testifying against Bilkis Banu were threatened. And I remember they were told that their bones would be broken if they landed in Mumbai.
Right.
Am I right?
Something like that. That's the reason I said there are papers which may be dug out, it may be in the office of CBI or even in the MHA Internal Security Division also, which IS-7 was handling this.
Okay.
So you can come across some paper lying in somewhere. So it was a case where Bilkis Banu, ultimately the people they have completed their sentence. Whether rightly or wrongly, they did complete their sentence, and now they have got their parole. On this also people have a problem. And it is all, for example, Tista Satilwad, the Citizens for Justice, or another one was Sabrang Test or whatever. Actually, many people, including the leftist cabal, were making money.
In the name
it was a money spinner.
Gulbarg Society and everything.
Gulbarg Society, Sayasan Jafri case. Everybody was there. Rice Corners ultimately had to confess because he was being harassed. So everybody was making money about it, and it was very well known. In the MHA circles, it was very well known that these are all people making money out of it.
This deliberate targeting of Narendra Modi ji from 2002 onwards, even now for that matter, even after he has become a Prime Minister and been here for almost 9 years now, is a fact that this one individual was kind of a thorn in the Congress's flesh. The entire Congress establishment in Gujarat and elsewhere in the country were kind of angry and upset that Modi had become the Chief Minister.
It is, I'll tell you one thing. Let's be very clear that again I started with the very fact that he was more objective. He would not give in to lobbies and narration setters and all this. See the amount of infrastructure, or everything infrastructure which is coming up in the country, the robust foreign policy. You have seen, I don't think you have ever seen a foreign minister so brazen like the present one, who stands for the national pride. And the security, on these 3 accounts, he has been unprecedented. We have not seen before 2014, we have never seen this type of consolidation. And that, for example, that itself is a lot of profit makers have been suffering losses. For example, in the Rafale deal, it has come out that there were some people who were working for, lobbying for some other company, and they were upset. In every such thing, in whether the infra project or whether it is the security, all of them are linked. The governance, lot of seepages used to happen, which has been plugged by Modi, including the DBT or the digital platform, the DBT and all.
Yeah, correct. That's obviously, Mr. Mani, you had in your book, The Myth of Hindu Terror, which is your first book, if I remember right, Okay, and then the deception which you wrote later. In the myth of Hindu terror, actually you had brought out all these facts. Actually, this entire narrative of the Hindu terror, including this famous photograph of a guy holding a sword, which later turned out to be a kind of a paid for advertisement by the cabal media. All these things, including the tailor who was pleading for his life, later turned out to be a fake photograph.
Right.
All this myth of Hindu terror was built up by the Congress to counterbalance the Pakistani establishment's kind of indulgence in Indian politics. You rightly mentioned sleeper cells. There were a lot of sleeper cells, including many in Hyderabad, many in other cities also. They're coming out one by one, be it PFI, SDPI or anything else for that matter. In your book that you specifically mentioned there, the myth of Hindu terror, be it Shivraj Patil or Chidambaram later on, why was this myth being done? Because I'm equating it with Mr. Narendra Modi and now the saffron terror or the Hindu terror as they wanted, the Congress wants to call it.
Basically, let's get it very right. Even if you go to the Sachar committee report, do you ask the religion of the criminal undergoing a terror, undergoing a sentence? Does it got any relevance? A criminal is a criminal. He doesn't have any religion, language, caste, creed, anything like that. No ethnicity. He is a criminal. He is a convicted criminal. Why do you go and publicize that so many such excess, so and so are criminals, convicts are so, sentencing are so, all this? Why do you do this sort of a classification? Why do you do this ethnic modeling? What was the need for that? Basically, it was all done to ensure that we are all with the Muslims, even if you do whatever lawlessness. I am not saying all Muslims are doing lawlessness, but if you are all, we will still support you because you keep voting. We want to keep you under our stranglehold. It is sort of a entitlement, ownership of Muslim votes. It's about ownership of votes, something like that. So that is what started this entire theme. So you go to such a committee. Again, I repeat that a convict is a convict. No media, everybody was brazenly publicizing about how disproportionately higher proportion of Muslims are in jails, convicts and all that. He is a convict, whether he is a Muslim or a Hindu or a Christian or a Sikh is irrelevant to the nation. He has been convicted by the court of law. There is a 3 to 4 level iteration in the judiciary, right from the trial court or the sessions court or the high court and the Supreme Court. You mean to say all of them convicted him because he is a Muslim? No. His conviction has happened because of the evidence and facts placed before the courts.
No, that's exactly the point. The cherry picking that international media does, especially media like BBC, which is a state-funded media. Tomorrow, imagine if India decides to or sends Doordarshan or any other media to England to investigate the murder of Princess Diana by the Buckingham Palace. Will the British establishment allow this delegation to even reach?
No, they will never.
But we allow it. We still have that Godhra, admiration for the white skin, isn't it? We want to be.
That is one thing which Narendra Modi's time has challenged it. For example, why this has come? Vaccine was a game changer.
True.
See, COVID might have created a lot of hardships for majority of people, but as a nation, the COVID and its vaccine, the development thereafter has been a game changer. It's a statement. The positives of Covaxin is, it's a statement. And Narendra Modi went on to offer COVID to Boris Johnson, which the Englishman could never take, could never digest.
It's like exporting coal back to Newcastle.
Exactly, it is exporting coal back to Newcastle. This is perhaps, because see, they have always held India very derisively, but here was a case of a scientific innovation. I will tell you one thing, very interesting things happened those days. Even Serum Institute, which was the pioneer of COVID vaccine, there was a reported fire. I do not know whether
Yes, I remember that incident. Just before the first batch was shipped out.
I don't know whether it was a accident or it was a sabotage. The Wistron plant in Bangalore had an industrial unrest. It was a Taiwanese collaboration factory. You know, there was some industrial accident in Visakhapatnam LG plant.
Korean again.
So these things were happening. So these were all very clear indications. There were many such small instances which might have not.
Today's war, Mr. Mani, is not fought on the tanks and
No, it's not conventional. It is
today's
neither conventional
it's
nor
either a
state
cyber
actors.
war or a scientific war or things like that.
Right.
In fact, interestingly, when we are actually peddling for this BBC theatre with Hartosh Singh Bal and all these people, we all know these crooks very well. Be it Siddharth Varadarajan, be it Shekhar Gupta, all these guys are funded by a certain mechanism within the Indian establishment.
Right.
Many Indian businessmen are funding these wire and the caravans and quints of the world. My question to you is, of course, they would all like to peddle Sadhvi Pragya as a terrorist or Colonel Purohit as a terrorist, because that would counterbalance the Islamist terrorism. That is what their thought process is. But being in that crucial post in the Ministry of Home Affairs, especially during 26/11, and we have spoken in detail about it. My point is, as we kind of bring this discussion to a kind of conclusion, how is it that the BBC documentary is being peddled for as a proof when the Supreme Court itself, as you rightly said, has closed the case? And now the Supreme Court wants to hear the BBC thing. Will any other country, for example, Russian TV is banned in every other European country after the Ukraine war. But did any publication or any people in UK or France or Germany go to the courts and say, no, we want to watch the Russian television? Did anybody do that? But in India, you still have that Godhra philosophy. We would love to be ruled by the British. We would love an acknowledgement by the BBC. Why do you think that is happening?
Because, see, basically, the more Modi challenges it, because lot of Atmanirbharta, see, basically, few things. Let us get the education system. We were producing a lot of clerks. This was again a game changer. I don't hold any brief for Narendra Modi or BJP. I am an independent thinker. So I am a retired person. I don't hold any brief for anybody. Kaushal Bharat, Kushal Bharat was a scheme.
Pradhan Mantri
Whatever it is, I do not
yes.
know. It is something about skilling,
Correct.
giving the right skills. Industries would get skills, and that also. And again, along with that, the Mudra, what they call it, self-employment schemes. These were all changes where some sort of the country, taking the country towards more well-distributed prosperity. And it is happening. It's all around us. Whatever the Congress may say, whatever the Kaushik Basus and Raghuraman Rajan may say, I don't care for it. These are all the instruments which have made the impact. Atmanirbharta, COVID vaccine. These are all, they have made their impact.
Correct.
And here this is the way the immigrations out of the country is stopping. British is not getting labor. Their British fellows have stopped getting any skills or education. Let's be very clear about it. British have to be very, and the businessmen you are talking about. We have about that IPMSS media, principled media, whatever it is. Azim Premji was one of the founders. Rohini Nilekini, the wife of one of the founders of Infosys, Nandan Nilekani, who fought on a Congress ticket also, is also closely associated. I think she is also a trustee in that, and is a big major donor. I am not holding any brief against anybody. Incidentally, the same Infosys, another founder's son-in-law, has a family relationship with the British Prime Minister. So the cycle is coming through.
Connecting the dots there.
You need to just connect the dots. This is one vertical of the story. Again, internal consolidation is not acceptable to the cabal. By Kaushal Bharat or Atmanirbharta, it is the internal consolidation. One is already we are doing it on the security front. We are seeing already the conventional warfare has been challenged by the Pakistan has practically stopped it. Another very important myth, till 2000, till the Doklam happened, we were all made to believe that Chinese army is much superior than us. Our defense forces cannot tackle it. But in Doklam, the Chinese army was given a bloody nose.
Even in Galwan.
Literally, Galwan is later. First was Doklam. Literally bloody nose was given to them by our soldiers. And that also was not acceptable to some of the veterans also who have been peddling this idea.
True.
Who are on the other side of this. There are many veterans also. Even they were saying that given a chance, if you give them the opportunity, if they are challenged. Now recently was in that youngster, Chinese army will be given bloody nose and they are not willing to accept. This is one. Number 3, the MOU between the ILD. ILD is not an ordinary wing of CCP. ILD is literally the intelligence gathering. It is something like our R&AW of the Chinese government, but they call it under CCP. They don't keep it as a state actor. That's the international liaison department. They recruit, they develop sleeper cells, etc., etc. The Global Times is an offshoot of that, and you have seen Chinese people jumping Bangladesh, Indo-Bangladesh border fence and then trying to come into India. And there were some journalists also corrected. So that is number 2. So Chinese have been given a bloody nose. And that myth has been, more importantly, whether it was Doklam or Youngster or wherever it is, where the TV shows were there, the myth has been exposed that Indian army can take on the Chinese defense forces at any place at any time. In spite of the bloody, the terrain is much worse than the Indo-Pakistan border terrain. In spite of that, we can take and give them a bloody nose. So these are all facts which have come out in the last 9 years. And that is, the more and more facts have tumbled out. So this is basically a juggernaut which is coming in. A juggernaut of development and consolidation. So this has to be arrested.
So that has to be stopped by the BBC.
Exactly.
No, that's what upsets me, because I've been in media for now more than two and a half decades now. Is the fact that many Indian print journalists of those days, and now of course they are all metamorphosized into websites, you can call it that way, or YouTube channels for that matter, like Wire and Quint and Scroll and everything else. These people are funded heavily, not just by the people whom you mentioned earlier, but also by international organizations, very shady organizations, including George Soros, including Bill Gates and others.
Right.
Now the point, Mr. Mani, as we close this discussion is, the modern warfare, as I mentioned before also, is not going to be fought just on the ground, like a Doklam or a Galwan or other places. It is also going to be fought on the basis of imagery. The Hindenburg report, okay, I have nothing to do with Adani, I am not holding any brief for him, but the point is, it took down the Indian stock market along with it. The idea is that to bring down the Indian success story, as you rightly mentioned, the international media, including the BBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Economist, the Guardian, everything is used to throw it India. As if India was all a land of milk and honey before 2014, everything went wrong after 2014 because Narendra Modi was there. And the point which you rightly brought out in your earlier books also was the fact the attack is not on Modi ji. People are mistaking that the attack is on Modi ji. The attack is on India, and the attack is on a particular community in India, the Hindus. And that is what people don't understand, what is really happening. What do you have to say, Mr. Mani, as we close this conversation?
By the way, you flagged the issue of investments, international bureaus. Our good friend Honorable MP Mahesh Jethmalani has already found out and established that Chinese investments has been a major driver in BBC in spite of being a state entity.
Correct.
That's a matter of discussion. And as you said, the juggernaut has to be stopped. And Modi may be the face of it, but who is benefiting is the people of India who are benefiting. Whether it is the vaccine, we have the best of the COVID, countering COVID
responses.
Thing. I mean the best in the world, better than many of them. Although even at that time the narratives were being spread that our dead bodies were shown and all that. All said and done, still we had one of the best, not one of the best counter COVID action plans. And even now they are all very good. Any epidemic, now we have learnt our lessons. Similarly, investments, things are happening. If you are taken to 2004 onwards, the Chinese goods of the commercial level, like the hairpins and needles and all, they had flooded the Indian market. We used to do Chinese Diwali instead of Shivakasi Diwali. And this was done as a part of the NAC recommendations to handle one Arjun Sengupta committee of MSME. They in tandem, it was designed by and later on the design was ultimately formalized in the ILD MOU. So that has been now countered, and now the Mudra specifically and several other initiatives in the MSME sector. I have been in the industry ministry, I have been in the MSME also prior to my home ministry tenure. Several initiatives I have taken forward, including handling the credit to MSME and all that. They have taken forward and a lot of good things are happening. So again, there Chinese are hurt. So everywhere you see, on the defense front you are hurting, on the economics also they may say investments are increasing and all that. On the economic front
so
also.
they'll try a war through another route.
Exactly, a proxy war. So whether BBC is fighting a proxy war for China, we do not know, but that's one of the major questions, because all these things are well connected. Whether Chinese is attacking Indians or Chinese is attacking, because they have the OBO and One Belt One Road policy with China, they have the infrastructure coalition with China. There are so many very, very thick this thing, and anybody, and you can see anybody who has had a very cozy relationship with China has landed themselves in impoverishment. You have seen the Sri Lankan model, now you have seen the China, Pakistan. And mind you, India also from 2012 to 2014, the things were not very, very happy.
You were in the government then?
2012, because 2008 onward the MOU happened, it takes because India being a much more robust economy and a larger in size. 2012 to 2014, check the figures, Raghuraman Rajan, I do not believe it. See the ground reality, there was policy paralysis, the Honorable Prime Minister would not take any decision, there were several pressures. And Antony had admitted, former defense ministers admitted that we did not want to build any infrastructure in the Chinese
because we were scared of the Chinese.
Mr.
This Mani, that is wonderful, sir, because we could go on and on with the conversation, but due to the paucity of time, thank you very much for finding a time when you are in Hyderabad to meet us. I know that you travel frequently from Delhi to Hyderabad, but every time you are here, it's a pleasure to listen to you, and thank you very much for joining us today at the Nationalist Hub conversations, and thank you very much once again, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we close this conversation, there are many points mentioned by Shri RVS Mani here. Economic warfare. The MOU signed with the Chinese by the government of India of Manmohan Singh those days. Remember the famous photograph of Rahul Gandhi signing an agreement. All these are tailored to hit India. It is, don't take the BBC documentary in isolation. Don't take the Hindenburg report in isolation. All these are plans to hit India's economic might. Because today, when we are closing in from a fifth position to the third position, and as a 3 trillion to 5 trillion economy, remember that these targets, these attacks will only keep increasing. And as we go along, we will see more of these attacks on Narendra Modi, on India, and of course, people like you and me. We are the ones who will also be impacted. We need to fight back. We need to fight back this cabal. We don't need the Goras to tell us who we are. The Raj is gone. Raj is dead and gone. The British are no longer relevant. They looted our country. We have a right to demand what they looted from us. Instead, the British are telling us what to do. Ladies and gentlemen, think about it. Thank you for watching.